Good morning, everybody. I'm Thomas Blair.
And I'm Mark Halash.
And this is Patch Notes
from the future.
Yes, this is our second live stream we do of the month, where Mark and I read a bunch of patch notes and answer a bunch of questions for you guys. These patch notes are so imminent to go up on the web anyways, they're on fire. Like, there's really some last-minute stuff. Fire! We're trying to get knocked out so we can get 5.7 up for some snap tests. And I forgot to mention this morning, as always, we are joined by our video producer, John Gibson, over there. You can't see. He just waved at everybody. Waves. And Jack Kirby over here on the drums. Thank you for showing up, Jack.
You're welcome. Thank you for showing up there.
Yes. Okay. How many patch notes can there be for 5.7? Believe it or not,
36 pages.
There are like 8 pages now.
There's actually 8.
We just keep adding more and more and more stuff. What is Steven doing?
What? I can't see it.
He gave himself
yes.
more of a mustache? Perfect.
Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, so... No, why would we have 5.8 patch notes? 5.7 isn't even up yet. So, we continue to... what was the biggest slowdown I want to say on this one is the multi-zone stuff.
That was kind of a big deal.
Right, so getting all of the worlds to play in harmony is just
hard.
It's a technical thing. And as they push through those, everybody else keeps doing stuff. So, we're going to read some of these patch notes, and you guys can ask some questions. We'll answer the questions as you do it. I want to say most of the new items we actually read at the last patch notes from the future. With the exception of the grouping and zone functionality. That was the last piece that Steven got in, was the ability to actually stay in your group when you zone. Which is kind of...
sort of important.
Otherwise, it's very irritating every time somebody zones that you need to re-invite them to the group. But Steven went ahead and implemented that. Okay, so... And we talked about hunger functionality. Crafting is actually probably where we're going to start, where we've got all the Mega Deed recipes that are coming online for everything. And the rapier one we read. Altered stats which appear on some rings and necklaces. So I went through and made a pass because we added a bunch of crafting stats. And the reason we added a bunch of crafting stats is because I've started prototyping the crafting disciplines. So the major crafting disciplines and the minor crafting disciplines, which I had a lot of fun with. They've got some new stats for crafting. Most of that stuff, though, is reliant on an update to the experimentation page that we are getting in 5.8, hopefully. So I didn't make them available to you guys, even though they are built. They actually need some art, too. Our summer intern for UI is working rapidly to try and make some icons for that stuff. Let's see how she does. But you guys will see that stuff as part of 5.8. But the stats you're going to start seeing in your details book as part of the 5.7 update, and you'll be like, hey, what are these stats and what can I do with them? You can't do anything with them, but you can read them. Actually, crafting speed on res is now, we tested it. It actually works like, I think 100 actually increases the speed by 100, so we didn't put out 100%, but it does do that. The time period changes. I changed all of the subcomponents to 1 second, and all of the end stuff is now 30 or 60 seconds. But if you have any crafting speed, you'll notice that stuff goes by very quickly. So crafting speed will become more important as we start tuning what times we actually want to use once crafting projects come online as part of, hopefully, 5.8 as well. Can you give us some examples of your major and minor crafting discs? I don't have my laptop here. I'm rebuilding Unity after a new repo sync last night. So it is chilling over at my desk. But maybe next week you can see some of those things. Jewel crafting now identifies the specific stats being experimented on during the experimentation phase. So prior to this, Sheen was pretty much used like a shotgun across everything. Shotgun some Sheen on that, shotgun some Sheen on that. Charlie gave me a bunch of tech where we can now actually look for the stats that are on an object template, and we can now call those out. So that means that you're going to start seeing a lot of our experimentation go from this just Sheen to it'll say strength or int. It'll actually point to the actual stats that are over there. So that's way more interesting than a word that people don't understand. And I changed the word Sheen anyways as part of 5.7 to all stats. So everyone understands that it implies
Even
all
me.
stats. Yes. Everyone was always like, what the fuck is Sheen? Well, now it's called all stats. What are we talking about?
Last Jedi?
I see Last Jedi. Oh.
Thanks, Halash.
That was Tark. No, Tark asked about it.
Yeah, but Halash had to point it out.
Yeah, I know.
You easily just skimmed right
Hey,
by
it's
it.
still a 0. We got to keep that 0 up there on the board.
Oh, God.
Yeah, there's now a board up for how many days without Last Jedi incident.
It's never
It's a
been not
big
0.
goose egg, you know?
It's constantly stuck at 0. Okay, I believe we'll be able to see combat log in their example. Somebody was talking about combat log. That is a 5.8 feature. I'm in fact writing the document so Akshay can begin work on that as part of 5.8 as we speak today, in fact. I have no clue what wild crafting is in 5.7. Cartography. Yep. The map is also back in Tommy's lap as part of 5.8 to fix a lot of problems in there. Will jewel crafting have multiple experimentation lines so those high pips aren't screwed by the inability to get 50% from only one experimentation line? Yes, as part of this effort, you should see multiple lines in there, which means if you have over 10 points that you should be able to spend them. That being said, I don't guarantee that every experimentation phase will have greater than 10 pips. It just... Blair does not confirm that attributes are on items unless you consider that the vessel is an item and the vessel does have attribute caps as part of 5.7, which means you can raise your strength _cap, which means that now this vessel could have the potential to be stronger than the other ones. We did a lot of the _cap work for all the vessel stats. Zybek, you are insane! That was, in fact, one of the worst moments in history of science fiction. I mean, and we're talking about, like, Flash Gordon with flying saucers on strings, and you could clearly see the string. Flying Leia was way worse than that shit.
I'm gonna ban everyone. There's just gonna be no chat anymore. No one gets to say anything.
Hey, our Q&A will be like, hey, no one's asking any questions.
Good.
Meanwhile, Jack banned everybody. Okay. Wildcrafting was your team's name for the May 31st update. Oh. I didn't know that. So what people may not know is after I write an article, it goes through a couple editorial processes, and Jack over there takes some liberties with the titles of things.
Are
And
you talking about wildcrafting?
yeah,
You didn't write that.
I didn't?
Todd wrote that.
Did he?
Boom. That's why.
Boom.
Oh, okay.
You
Todd
didn't
called it
do that.
wildcrafting. That's why. I think he decided like halfway through that's what he was going to name it. So that's probably why.
I'm like, wildcrafting?
Wildcrafting.
What is that?
Yeah, that's the picking up plants.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in fact, we're having the kickoff meeting for beginning implementation of that today. So I look forward to that. Will we get rank 7, rank 10 graveyards in 5.7? Right now, we can only get blue body parts. I don't know the answer to that question, Gradisher, but the map is now randomly generated, and part of the world-building team's tasks in the future are to make worlds that have nice playable sweeps of everything. We'll probably see better worlds as part of 5.8 when we've got 10 or 12 worlds, however many zones we're doing for that next evolution. The first what we've been playing now has been the single map. The next update in 5.7, you guys are going to see the 4-zone map, and then we're going to make the next leap, which I think is 12 or 10. I'm sorry, someone's stuck in the Toronto airport. Airports suck. Well, we get stomachs, eyes, hearts, and lungs in 5.7. I did not redo the loot tables. Those were on the old Risen loot tables.
Yeah.
However, we do have new humanoid type NPCs in the pipeline. Probably when those arrive is when we will put those things back in action. Oh, yeah, that was terrible. How could they let her fly in space?
Oh my god.
Let me read some more of the crafting stuff so we get some more questions related to that. Or Mark can. You want to pick it up
sure,
at underneath jewel crafting. Actually, you're going to read that line and we're going to talk about it for a second.
Add a new section to the character details page for final mitigation values. The sum of chest plus armor bonus stats.
Yes, so when I put in the stat caps for armor bonuses, I thought that was the final be-all, end-all. And what I realized is that stat funnels into the final mitigation stat because I'd forgotten that I created it so long ago. Those things happen. So I actually had to bump it down into that final mitigation stat, which is actually the calculation of your chest plus all of the mitigations you've got. And while I was in there, I also set the caps to plate guys are generally at 65%, the male guys are at 50%, and the squishy guys are at 40%. So your initial ability to mitigate will be based on, or your max ability to mitigate will be based on the class, and then you can get cap increasers. Now, we still record over the cap stuff for penetration, but for those of you who like to weigh what is better than this and that is better than that, a straight health increase is probably better if you're at cap than an over the cap gamble on if Mark has penetration value, which he's going to have because he knows what's going on, but not everybody may know that, and it may not to be a degree where you just want to keep going just everything into mitigation. You may want to kind of think about, oh, I hit my soft cap, I should probably pull in some other stuff. I appreciate that, Tark. Thank you. Here we need the one you deserve. The Risen monsters were cool. The ones that had class abilities, yep. We are going to get some cool monsters in there. And now Mark has some really cool tools at his disposal for the AI. It's getting better. And now there is +1 engineer working on the bugs for that. So I'm anticipating the AI gets smarter and smarter every single update. In fact, you've been working on, it's going to go into 5.7 because you're checking it into dev.
Yes.
So why don't you tell people what you're doing with the AI right now?
Well, yeah, that's right. So you wanted me to change it so that you can basically, NPC basic attacks cause unavoidable damage.
Correct.
And why did you want that, Blair?
So some of the RPG elements were missing from the, for those of you who've been playing RPGs for years, the whole loop of I get a sword to go kill a monster, and that monster gives me a bigger sword so that I can go kill a bigger monster, and that monster gives me an even bigger sword so I can kill an even bigger monster. So there is just kind of a core loop in RPGs where gear is important for fighting some of that PvE content, and you can't just be naked using a basic weapon and just as successful as someone who is in better gear to fight the content. So we're kind of working out some of that right now, and the way we initially implemented all of the AI, we have more AI types that you guys have seen, so we're seeing this more than you guys are seeing, but you can basically, with the current AI, with a basic weapon, you could circle strafe forever, and you could basically avoid all their teleattacks. So what we need to do is we need to put in some base level of damage such that a rank 7 feels different than a rank 1, especially if you're undergeared. So it's going to force you to at least kind of stay up with the power curve and not go out there naked to farm those guys. So Mark is working on some of that. Pork brisket. We don't have pork brisket. So that should be fun with the AI. Are the race-specific trees working right now in 5.7? Last I talked to QA, they were working. It's funny how some of those things that we fixed 2 months ago, like, we were talking this morning, you guys are just so far in the past compared to this. We really need to get 5.7 out, and I'm hoping the snap test goes up as soon as possible. Could you add a dex cap modifier for heavy armors lowers the effect of dex on mitigation caps? Maybe. We can do lots of things. Unavoidable damage eliminates my cheesing strats. Yes, Cybeck, that is exactly some of what it's going to do. Can we get the final screen of race skills? Probably before 5.8. I mean, we're not going to change the speeds on any of the skill stuff right now on rest. Currently, stealth is broken when heal buffs disappear. Will that be fixed in 5.7?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's fixed.
I think that was a problem with the... Was it the proc or something?
It was any pool.
Any pool?
Right. So,
Yes.
I mean, it was basically, it didn't care whether you got a positive or negative pool change.
Okay. So apparently that got fixed as part of 5.7. Are we going to be adding more harvesting stats back to armor? They were nerfed some patches. They got shifted around. So everything got shifted around, Tark, such that we could increase the value that they give. So if we put a stat on every single piece of armor, we naturally divide it by that, assuming that somebody is going to min-max that and get the max amount. So actually you want the stats to be on as few pieces as possible. A good example is the attack power. Attack power feels much more significant because it's just on the weapon now rather than being on everything. Actually, I think it's on the necklace too as an option for it as well. Will the new decay rate while in combat apply while having to fight these NPCs? Yes, decay happens all the time you're using your equipment. I checked Actually, I had Wyatt, our new design summer intern, have him check all of the stuff with decay stats, and the decay stats are actually working. So if you have, what is it called? It's like decay plate mitigation or something like that. It increases the tick from 10 seconds to 12 seconds to 14 seconds. So those mitigation stats are actually, or not mitigation, the anti-decay stats are actually pretty good. But let's get some more stuff out there before we answer more questions. Because now we're kind of just getting a bunch of random questions.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
that's how it goes.
Where were we? We were talking about what?
The final mitigation one.
Final mitigation. Am I? Okay. Oh, here we go. Reduce subcomponent crafting time to 1 second base, which I believe you just said, and you said the next one. Reduce number of pips available for experimentation for common quality items from 6 to 5.
Yes.
And likely reduce number of pips avail for experimentation for poor quality items from 6 to 4. Reduce harvest critical amount cap from 10 to 5. Reduced harvest critical amount grants and skill trees from 5 to 1. Reduced max durability on rings and necklaces since they only suffer decay on death now.
Correct.
Added variable stat caps for crafting assembly, experimentation, and experimentation points. Set max stack size of ethereal dust to 5,000. Set max stack size of chaos embers to 50. Crafting fuels such as carbon, coal, and lacing sinew now require ethereal dust. Armor layers now require ethereal dust. Slightly reduce the ethereal dust cost for low-end armor. Combined reduced resource amounts required for most armor components, which is scales, rings, sheets, plates, squares, and hardened squares of the leather kind. Added new data to the crafting descriptions to indicate the amount of outcome for that recipe.
Yep.
Okay. Leather padding and rivets only stat outcome is out of combat health regeneration.
Yep.
Buckles only stat outcome is now stealth. Interesting. All stats previously available on padding, rivets, and buckles have had their coefficients on components. They're still on increased. All crafting types experimentation point caps now default to 18.
Yes. So let me talk about that one for a second. So crafting also got stat caps just like everybody else. The base on points was lowered to 18. The goal here being we're going to put in a bunch of stuff that increases those caps. So that way things are important. And it wouldn't surprise me if at the end of the day some of the cap increase ends up on the racial disciplines. When we make a pass and go, you know what? We think that humans or maybe even Stoneborn should get +2 experimentation points cap. Because the cap ones are the interesting ones because it actually, if everybody can get 18, then everybody's the same. The races and the classes won't feel substantially different. However, this is another thing that people can plan around when they're trying to make what they think is the perfect character. So 18 max pips on crafting is the base. So we haven't got to the patch notes yet, but the very next patch note is new Alchemy Potion, the Potion of Sappho, which increases all experimentation point caps by 4, and it lasts 5 minutes, I believe. So the goal is that you chug those in between crafting attempts, as well as there are now crafting stations that are thrall enhanced, or whatever, I can't remember what the phrase I used, that are located in the keeps. And when you stand near one of those crafting stations, you get a +2 experimentation point cap, as well as an additional experimentation point of all types. Or wait, no, of the type of that station. So if you're standing at the blacksmithing station, you get +2 to your blacksmithing experimentation point cap, and you get an extra point. So basically, there are a bunch of consumables we're putting in to feed the alchemy class. You're going to start seeing this across the board, which is, hey, we want to make sure people use all these fun tools that we're giving them. Otherwise, people will never use them. Go figure. Or you make them last so long that they use them very infrequently. So you're going to start seeing stuff like that. But this also means that the really awesome crafting stations are going to be located in the keeps. We're going to start tweaking with, now that I've built this kind of these buffs that the stations can give, we're going to start playing with other fun things that they can do. A reason to craft in. Yes. With all these mats and additional materials, when are we actually going to be able to get enough bank space to store all this? Yes, bank space is a constant pressure. As part of that, I went ahead and reduced all of the 1x2s, like metal bars and planks, to 1x1s. So everything should take up less space, ideally. So if you're storing a lot of those component pieces, they should be smaller, and you should be able to squeeze them in there. But yeah, bank space is going to become one of those things. We've always wanted to do a bag inventory for like getting your herb bag or getting your mining bag. That spec is out there. We just haven't had the time to actually implement that feature. 5-minute potions, bullshit? Well, that's your opinion. That means that you're going to use them every couple minutes, and the people who make potions are going to say, hey, buy a factory crate of my potions. Why 5 minutes? I was actually going to make that potion a 30-second potion. So basically you got to use it for one craft, and every craft you'd have to do it. But I bumped it up a little bit just to account for people selecting points, which is going to get easier in 5.8, but we haven't talked about that yet. Possibility of a legendary forge located, say, in the depths of an adventure zone. Yes, Tennis, that with these new buffs, and there's actually a additional feature I've asked for as part of 5.8 to make these stations do something else that's even cooler. I won't talk about that yet until we get the new experimentation page online, but we're definitely going to start seeing that. And with the tech that we have for outposts that got implemented, we can now put those guys kind of in the world as part of the deck, where people could just find these cooler stations located in the world. Factory crates, yeah. That's not a 5.8, maybe not a 5.9, but it's definitely on our list. When will we see new racial pass for crafting and gathering? We're not going to talk about those trees yet, because there's still some stuff in progress there that we're working on. No, the special stations are going into the keeps. That's the whole point. Is you want to take over a keep, because all of a sudden your crafters can make better stuff if your team owns the keep. We got to push the whole campaign warfare kind of thing. Okay. You want to continue?
Sure.
Underneath, I talked about the new Alchemy Potion for Potion of Sappho.
Sure. Another new alchemy recipe, transmute 1 Chaos Ember to 75 Ethereal Dust.
Yep.
Another recipe, bulk grind 20 resources at a time.
Yeah, I was... since we don't have an amount selector on the crafting UI as of yet, you can now just take 20 minerals and grind them into 10 dust, as opposed to having to go through it 10 times.
Empty Flask now requires 1 Ethereal Dusk. Empty Flask recipe now produces 3 flasks. And Empty Flask recipe outcomes are now common quality. Updated all crafting discipline recipe descriptions. Now the descriptions should list which powers are granted with each discipline. Basic harvesting tool recipes have been updated to include an increased durability tool if all named wood resources are used for each required recipe slot. The description of the recipe has also been updated.
Yeah, so you can now find basically the reason to use yew, birch, or whatever to make your tools is you now get a sturdy version of that tool, which has another 35 to 40% durability increase over the baseline tool. So if you want your basic tools to last longer, use named woods instead of not wood. If you want your intermediate tools to last longer, use named woods on the wooden runestone. I don't think I got it to the stone one yet, but that was kind of on my list of things to do this week. So there you go. Use named woods when you're making tools.
Right. F to interact. Can now F to interact another player, which includes things like trade, whisper, invite.
And they all work.
I've
seen them all working.
They all do stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Added in trade response hookups for F to interact, whatever that means, which means I guess you can trade. And then hooking up acceptance for trade. So basically hooked up all those things so that the above work. Adding interactable to the player. That covers both the social case and death blow case, so just more stuff to make the F to interact stuff work. Skill trees. Added new skill node to excavation tree to enable harvesting of weapon additive hunger shards.
Yes.
Replace nodes in reaping tree for animals, which used to grant hunger shards to increase bone and blood harvesting. And added more detailed text to several skill nodes.
Great.
About vassals and EKs. Fix a bug with moving and removing parcels in the EK where non-player objects that should be teleported to the temple graveyard were not correctly teleporting. You can now rotate placeables while they're in socket preview state. That's cool. Death and durability. Lowered per combat death to 5 durability per unit item hit. Oh, that's nice. Tow truck amount has been reduced to 25 per item. So now you can tow truck more and more than before.
Mm-hmm.
Increase the rate at which decay is taken while in combat stance. This should move us towards decay happening based on use versus on death, and is uniform across all playstyles, which would factor in melee versus range, fast versus slow attacks, all the usual things that can make this a synchronous. No, that's a bad word. Not the same. Not the same.
Yeah, that was something that you and I discovered on DC, right?
Oh, absolutely, right? I mean, if you're doing things like number of hits and attack time, all these things matter when the hits matter. right?
Yeah, and it means that melee guys chew through equipment, and range guys are like, I'm never going to get a new set of gear ever.
Yes.
I'm just going to sit back here, shoot my bow.
That's very, very similar to other games I've played that had similar problems where you play clothy because you never get hit. You never have to ever replace your equipment because you just never get hit.
Yep,
right?
and that's
silly.
Yep.
Silly. So that was death and durability.
Yeah, so that's a fairly significant change.
Mm-hmm.
Again, these are our initial values. I think they're pretty reasonable, as well as the fact that you can actually slow down replacing gear by buying gear with more durability,
mm-hmm.
which means that the more advanced makers of equipment who have more crafting points will probably put some of those points into durability to make their stuff last longer. And or you can get stuff with anti-decay stats, which means that now all of a sudden anti-decay stats are important. So we've kind of basically made both of those things more important by making it kind of uniform across the board at which the rate things decay. So anyways,
yes.
Let me read the next couple for you. What do we got? Fix for power combo cancel. Client power blackout for interrupt powers. That's a mouthful. What the hell was that, though? I'm guessing if you cancel the combo, it would correctly cancel the combo on the client.
You couldn't cancel things like Whirlwind and the Champion. Anything that had 4 to cancel.
Yeah. Just didn't work?
Just didn't work. Nope.
Okay.
Now it does. They may not have ever seen that. These could be completely...
Gotcha.
Fixes for us since we've been...
Sheen Bean dies in the end. That's a good one. Is it the pun day? Is today pun day?
It was, yeah. It was
we had some puns yesterday.
Slack.
Blazin has a good question I'm going to answer. Does the anti-decay stuff work in 5.7? Not sure those skills work in 5.6.
Well, it should.
So I had the intern test it yesterday, and I looked over shoulder. I think the reason people don't think they work in 5.6 is because currently in 5.6, a point of combat decay takes 300 seconds.
Yeah.
So that means 5 minutes of being in combat mode before one of your pieces of gear has a random point of decay. So the way that the anti-decay stats work is they increase that window. So let's say that you had 50 in the anti-decay stat. That means that your, what did I just say? Was it 300 seconds? Mm-hmm. Your 300 seconds is now 450 seconds. And the odds of you just sitting in combat that long and noticing, oh, hey, it was 450 seconds instead of 300 seconds is pretty slim. So I think that's why people think that they don't work in 5.6. Now, however, that it's 10 seconds, we clearly could see, oh, hey, I was taking a tick every 12 seconds or every 15 seconds versus every 10 seconds. So hopefully that should clear it up for everybody. The in-combat stuff is lengthened the amount of time between ticks based on those stats. And the death also is reduced. Why it was able to get down to 3 decay per item on death with I think he was wearing a plus 100 ring, one of our cheaty rings. Mm-hmm. And it was 24 or 23 for the tow truck. So they clearly are reducing it. Onres, can anti-decay stats be added to the combat next, as some of the combat next stats were only meh? Well, that's unfortunate. But yes, we can look at that, Onres. Post which ones you think are particularly meh for us, please. Princess Leia obviously had a lot of sheen to it.
Just skip like the next 10...
Oh, yes, her durability was maxed. She was wearing a necklace that had stats that increased the ticks, and she was in space only long enough to not take a decay tick.
Oh, my God.
Okay. No. No. Will there be more skills added to Duelist? What kind of skills do you feel like you're missing there, Hajiliex? do you guys get on the live server and ever roll around and play the game to see how things are working in the live environment? We usually do it on Fridays when everyone's like, hey, jump into live and see what's going on. We want to hammer on something like networking code. There have been numerous bug reports on the spawn-on damage health orbs issue, including what the nature of the problem turned out to be. Yeah, I think ultimately code was looking at where you were when you equipped that passive versus where you were when you got hit with those passives, the ones that create orbs and things like that. That did get fixed as part of 5.7.
There is, in fact, a cryptic note about that in
Is
here,
there?
in complete engineer speak.
Yes.
Talking about words.
Words.
Words. Those cryptic engineer words. Oh, did I miss anything while we were talking about Sean Bean?
You didn't miss a thing, Blair.
I didn't. Will we start to see more use of rare components for blood beyond jewel crafting, bone beyond alchemy? Maybe. Again, we're just starting to really flesh out. Plants is going to add a whole new degree of reagent for everything. So you are going to see new things appear in the recipes. For example, the assassin uses 4 apples for his initial toxin,
Which is placeholder.
Clearly a lot of that placeholder stuff exists. That's why we had weapon additive shards as part of the creature loot.
There just isn't a lot of arsenic in apple seeds.
There
But there is arsenic in apple seeds.
You just have to use a ton of
You
apples.
just need lots of apple seeds.
So you could die by eating just lots of apple seeds.
You'd have to eat a lot of apple seeds.
It's a lot. Like a whole lot.
Like a whole lot.
So are you saying that we should
An
make
apple a day will kill you.
players should have to harvest 1,000 apples to make their
Probably.
poison?
Basic poison.
To make one dose of poison, one swing of the proc hammer.
The rapid fire from guns are a bit low on the damage side for the duelist. I think it needs a strong shot or double shot that inflict damage, not just that I feel like the speed of the basic attack. Okay. Well, there are fun and upcoming systems that Mark and I will be looking at and evaluating all of the powers for all of the classes. And that is something that's going on in the background. Is food consumption being fixed? You mean you can eat it and it gives you chicken ticker? Because that seems to be working pretty well. Don't you love it when I know what he's really asking, but I actually answer the verbatim to what he asked? Because he's really asking, we think food is being consumed too quickly by the chicken ticker. And that is a thing that we're just going to keep evaluating. There are specific races that should feel like they are under food pressure nonstop, like centaurs and minotaurs, and they just got to eat. We've added a bunch of low-end recipes for those guys. So there you go. You would need to eat 200 apple seeds or 40 apple cores.
There you go.
Nice.
That is a whole lot of apple seeds and cores. But he said finely chew, so you probably have to grind them up. And
You might as well just eat like 300 or 400 seeds. Just actually
Just-
completely
Right.
made up.
I mean, it's true. The thing of it is, too, if you just swallow a seed, you'll probably just pass the seed. Right? Like, you won't even...
You won't digest it.
Why you have to actually...
That's how
chew
you
them.
get that really fancy coffee. Let's
Oh,
go
yeah.
off on a path here. The
Yeah, they get
the
it from civets.
the civet
The
poop.
civets, yeah.
They actually feed them beans. Their digestive thing does something to the outside of the bean, and then they poop it out.
Does it make them hyper, though?
What, all
The
those
civets,
beans?
though, the civets all like, woo! It's coffee time! I'm taking a dump!
Do they carry? They keep them in little boxes.
Let's see, civets.
Yes. So, I mean, if you've seen any other industrial food processing on that scale, they probably keep them in a little
Industrial-
box that's like this big, and the civet can't move, and it's trapped
Are
in
you
this
saying
box.
they're civet farms, or
They're
they're force?
civet farms.
They're absolutely
I-
civet
I
farms.
don't doubt
Really?
that
And
at all.
they're just force feeding them.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't doubt that in the least.
Yes.
Don't even want to look at it.
It's terrible. Like the things we do. I mean, have you ever seen the duck liver
I just
farms
heard somebody's
Foie gras.
where the foie gras where they just force feed these things? like they put a tube in their neck to just pump even more food because their brain's like, hey, stop feeding me because I'm not hungry. And they're like, oh no. So I have no doubt, because Civic coffee is super expensive, that it's even more of that. Anyways, back to patch notes. Oh, we were down to general powers.
Yes. Oh, there we go. Yeah.
Fix cooldowns from combos not showing correctly after switching tray powers. Hey, that was a fix Charlie did. Fix the power tray not expanding correctly if the player has more than 9 power slots. So that jankiness got fixed. Fix the hitch that would occur when trying to switch to stealth tray while airborne.
Which,
I think,
Yeah.
I think all of the trays were just kind of basically we were destroying and recreating everything, so it created a slight hitch. Charlie went ahead and fixed that.
And I don't think you can switch to stealth while airborne anymore.
Anyways, I nerfed that. Yeah. There's also, he added, there's like a little glow or something behind a discipline power, so you can tell the difference between a discipline power and your tray.
I'm like, oh, look, it's glowing. Why is it glowing? Oh,
you're like, why is this power glowing? Oh, it's a discipline power. Okay. Blind effects are now reduced in duration by the appropriate stat. Okay. I read about the bows, I think, last time. Reflex. A full pass on powers that have screen shakes has been done. Screen shake feedback should now feel a lot better during combat. Also, that included the hooking up of hit paws to the powers. Unfortunately, that's still all on the server side. It will be changing to the client side, so it will feel even smoother upcoming. So you may feel a slight delay on some of those hit effects happening.
But they're directional.
Yeah, so...
In a vacuum, they feel great.
Yes. Fixed an issue with aim mode powers where the targeting reticle disappeared and executed immediately without allowing any targeting. That was really annoying. You just press the button and it would just...
Boop,
gone. Where'd my reticle go? Hooked up all of the seasonal icons. Fixed a bug that was causing channeled powers execute blackout to be treated the same as charged powers. Okay, there were several bugs fixed between charged and channel powers. I don't see them on here, but basically it means that Ranger should be much more playable.
Yeah.
Right? Andy got rid of the getting stuck in the, hey, I've got my bow draw thing, and the insta-fire, and I think you put a minimum, or you extended the blackout timer.
Yeah, so
you can't go instant fire and just instant fire your way to 3 charge.
It is now as fast as basic instead of faster than the fastest basic.
Correct.
Spam it quickly.
And now Charlie also got hooked up the recovery time blackout widget, so you can see your bar when you're in recovery time from doing a power, such that you know...
Doing a dance move.
Yeah. It's like jazz hands. Oh, O'Neill wanted us to do, was it Shadowlight Puppet Theater? With the whole...
Oh, we could do that.
Like creating shadow puppets?
The green screen back here?
He was like, hey, why don't you guys go up there and do some... Actually, so I see shadows when I look back there, but when I look over at that screen, I see space behind us. So the shadow...
Green screens work. It's
That's
really
so
cool.
It is? Oh, I thought there was space back there.
Okay, so yeah, you should feel the basic attacks for everybody also, because of the way that we're processing the combos now, should also feel smoother. So hopefully across the board, with the retiming of the basics and a whole bunch of this tech, they should all feel good, as well as bows shouldn't get all weird and janky in combat. So hopefully you guys notice that stuff.
Positive feel improvements.
Yes, all of the feel improvements should feel great. We read all of these discipline ones, I think, last time.
Oh, you skipped over the proc chains cryptic thing.
No, proc chain should no longer preserve the power origin and directionality from the proc triggered, thus letting the chain DM/game effect determine the new one each time.
Yep.
Got it?
Sounds right.
So what that is that also means that even though I fixed the Master of Knives and I think, what was the other one? It was the basic attack procs, right? They shouldn't need that DM in there anymore, just FYI.
Yeah.
It can be like you originally implemented it before it got broken. Dodge power now looks more disabled when you have no dodge pips, plus adding new mouse button icons for power bar. And I started the prototype for the little monkey rolls as opposed to dodges, so don't get too in love with some of those the distances on those rolls right now, because they will get changed in the future. Races, we talked about the baseline caps last time. Power queue now cooperates with client immediate combo processing. Combos should now execute rejoice all in all caps. Who put that in? Was that an Andy? Perhaps. Then we've got some power ones. Whirling Pain now triggers critical hits when using exactly 2 pips left when starting the combo from Massive Cleave. Prior to this, you would only get crits if you had 3 or more pips, though it only cost you 2. Adjusted the hit times on the champion basics. Like I said, everyone got their hit times adjusted. Corrected an issue that allowed Nature's Avatar to be used on NPCs. No more of that.
Yes.
The additional hit caused by Duelist Inconceivable buff Capo Ferro no longer tries to play an additional animation, but the hit itself is now much larger and noticeable. Why is that under Druid?
Because it starts with a D?
Yes. Pepperbox Shot will no longer... Yeah, Pepperbox Shot doesn't stun Minotaurs from the front. Fix for the Elkin Stutter Step in the Jump Land Run. We already talked about the hit shake. You know what? That hit... I'm going to make some notes here. Hold on. That goes down, and this goes for all classes. Berserk no longer... We read that last time. But basically, you can't use the invulnerable stuff on Berserk anymore. And Templar Brilliance now does fire instead of bleed damage. Sounds. Okay, there was a whole mess of sounds and UI sounds that got checked in. Templar viable. Yeah, Templar will be getting their third they will be getting their pip on their third swing as soon as this goes up, and if it doesn't, please scream, because bad things have happened.
That's basically what all those notes were about, basically. Fixing.
So the Elk and Wolf powers have sounds, lowered the volume spike for opening the skills UI. Excuse me. Hover sounds for the sidebar buttons. Changed resurrect music stinger so it builds up depending on how many people you resurrected. That's pretty fancy. Various sounds for hunger versions of Elk, Wolf, Spider NPCs, raising the volume of the hog sound slightly. Fixed issue where test file was playing on Vessel Resurrect. All right. Reduced the volume of certain assassin power sounds, mostly stuff that triggers without stealth mode. Added lots of ambient sounds for both day and night functionality. Assigned footstep sounds to the NPCs. Hunger crystals. They now have a pulsing sound that goes around to match their pulsing.
It's so cool.
Their little heartbeat. Yeah.
They're so creepy. I love it.
The new map has been added. Arinth. There's a whole bunch of randomization tweaks. The outposts with the capture functionality are in. Why do I want to capture an outpost, Mark?
Super cool crafting stations.
Well, that's the keep, but there's 100 outposts in the map now. And the only thing at them is a tower and a cooking pot, which looks like a giant wheel of cheese because it keeps losing its LOD. And there is a campfire there.
Oh.
And if your team owns the outpost, you can use the campfire that's there. Whoa. Duelist, Pepperbox Shot, and Flintlock are currently not registering as crushing damage.
I'm curious why you believe that. How you're...
They're little ball rounds. Wouldn't that be piercing? Or fire?
You want to start this on the air, Blair? Because I said they should be piercing, and you're like, no, make it crushing. So that's you. That's you, dude.
They're currently not registered as crushing damage, though. Well, then what are they registering as?
They're registering as crushing damage, but I'm curious how it is that they're determining that they're not crushing damage. Because they are.
Well,
then they are because you made me make them be crushing damage, despite the fact that I said this should be piercing. I don't remember why, but you're not getting away with blaming it on me.
I wasn't blaming it on you. I wasn't looking for blame.
You were looking right over. You're like, Halash, why'd you make it crushing like that? Why are you disappointing me?
Yep. This is what happens when you make games with the same people for a really long time. A long time. We used Mudman shields, I guess, which blocks crushing damage.
Perhaps.
Oh, that's probably because the shields don't work at all right now for anybody.
Oh, yeah, so there you go.
There you go. That's not that it's not crushing.
Yeah, it's just that shields are broken.
It's just that shields are broken. Basically, we weren't setting the... there was something in code going on, which basically it was trying to give you a bunch of points to the shield. However, the shield was capped at 0.
Yeah.
So it would give you the points, and then it would uncap the max, and then it would reduce it. So basically, the shield was capping at 0. So shields got fixed for everybody, include like Knight should be broken in 5.6 right now. Anybody who can make a barrier.
Yeah. So Mudman should actually start working against stuff.
They're saying they work, but clearly we saw Charlie fix this in... It was a couple of weeks ago because we were all looking at the... I remember we were all looking at the code going, hey, that code's out of order. And because it's flipped, it... yeah. So he fixed it. I don't know if it got pulled into... If that was in 5.6 or if that was in 5.7 exclusive. Don't know the answer to that one. But clearly, it was causing a problem because what I was testing was not getting...
And I know I've looked at this, so I mean... I'll have to look again. I mean, clearly there's something. I mean, we believe you guys, but clearly something's not right.
Okay, what else we got? Some missing textures got added. The text on hippos got fixed. The new gear for gold vendor in the beachheads, which has basic stuff. If you don't want to gather, you can farm things for gold and buy them instead. The resources for gold to forts and keeps. Similar issue. Equipment items. Yeah, that's what I just said. Basically, updated avatars for system vendors so they are different from our item vendors. Yeah, we were getting confused ourselves. Melee and ranged vendors now look like weapon racks, and other vendors now look like chests. So it was causing a lot of confusion, so we used different objects to stop confusing ourselves. Removed enchanting tables from forts and keep parcels. Yep, enchanting is on the cutting block as a crafting type. It may still have some functionality where you can enchant items, but it is not going to use the crafting experimentation and that whole 9 yards. So we're pulling out all of the stuff that uses it. The Thrall worker buffs, which I mentioned earlier. New stations. The Thrall worker stations can be found in keeps. The station types are blacksmith, leather worker, jewel crafter, necromancer, and woodworker. Oh my goodness, lighting and terrain changes. It's a ton of terrain optimization, and there's been a ton of lighting changes. Everything's looking better and is more optimized. So that feels great. I like these specific notes though, like improve the look of grass to make use of pivot, use normal sample so it blends better, and stop the ugly pop-up / scaling. Updated the webbings. I'm guessing these are the spider webbings with newer assets. Various tweaks to get shadows and directional light working the way we want with our Envirus guy. And adjustments to parcels like the farm and hamlet have been done to make them use the newest lighting shader. There's new shader and lighting.
You got 3 minutes.
3 minutes. I'm seeing if there's... I hope, Gradisher, I really hope that we can get it up today or tomorrow. What is the cost of resources and keeps? I can't remember. Okay. Increase the Duber size so they're easier to pick up. Oh, some of these are Invulnerability should no longer prevent stomping on the stealth flag when you change trays. Added a few explicit lines of code to make sure you can see your corpse object when you're also a crow. Hey, you can also find your body cross-zone. That was an important one that went in too. Fix the Hellcat spit coming from the ground. However, projectiles are still going to the sky. So what's funny is one of the wolf abilities, which is the what's the wolf out? What's the wolf Ghost Army?
Yeah, I don't remember what it's called.
Anyways, you see all these wolves running, but instead of running on the ground, they're about 50 feet up in the sky, and you look up and it looks like the Santa army of wolf.
Santa, whatever.
You're like, hey, where's the sleigh behind those things?
Wolves.
Hopefully that will be fixed by the time you guys see it. If not, the projectiles may be up in the sky if you don't see them. Fix the scale on the on cleric hammer scale. Fix shield orientation for the Female. Basic poison vials are now considered common quality, and advanced toxins are now considered uncommon quality. We got some cool new backgrounds on our tooltips. Not the tooltips, the item icons. And there's a cool red background so you can see when you can equip something. There is the durability bar and item counter is now displayed in the power tray. So you can look at your power tray and you can see the status of all of your items that are equipped, which is pretty cool. That went in yesterday, I think. There's a whole new icon style. So Dave Greco, the man, the magician, has been putting some time into icons and making them look super cool. Not all the icons have been touched by him. It's a gradual process that will happen over time. But his art definitely looks super sweet in-game on the items. Okay. And can you now make better than poor toxins?
Yes.
Yes. That's what that said. Currently I can avoid fall damage by holding the space bar. I thought I saw a ticket in on that. Oh, look at Dave. Dave showed up. Thanks for watching, Dave. He just shows up just in case I say something nice about him, which I did this time. Everyone,
this time.
Yeah, you guys will see the new icons and you'll be as amazed as the rest of us were by them. Druid changes. Todd mentioned that the Druid orbs being visible was a bug. I'm pretty sure that one got fixed. For whatever reason, that one keeps breaking. Like, it feels like that piece is very fragile for whatever reason. The whole only I or my group can see these orbs. But I did see a check-in note a couple weeks ago saying that it was so. Hopefully QA verified that. Mark and I personally don't have time to go check literally every bug that gets fixed. However, we all use the same repository, so when someone checks in something, we kind of glance and see all the things that get checked in. So we're kind of aware of the state of things that are being checked in, but we don't know whether that check-in actually fixed something or if it broke something on the other side. Okay. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Wraith. We enjoy showing you guys into the back end of making things and why we make changes and the progression of a lot of things from a piece of paper to a prototype, from the prototype to it all arted up and everything working good. It's always a fun process to walk through. And I know you don't get to see that with a lot of games. You just see the end product and you're like, okay, this is the end product. And you didn't actually see it when it was. I remember when we showed the Hunger Shards, was it 2 months ago now? And it was just that crappy blue crystal that we had. And nothing worked right. It kind of worked okay. But now everything has been polished and it looks really cool. And you guys will enjoy it.
Cool.
And it sounds cool.
So creepy.
Yeah, sound adds a big dimension to all this stuff. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that in 5.7, which hopefully we will be snap testing imminently. We are really trying to get that up as fast as possible. And really, it's just bugs at this point because we kind of don't want to put up. We're kind of getting to the phase where we're kind of trying to make sure everything is just slightly better each time so we're not reverting backwards. So the quality level always feels good. So, thank you for showing up for Patch Notes from the Future. I'm Thomas Blair.
And I am Mark Halash.
And we will see you guys soon.